Namaste everyone. Namaste from Renewable India. Today we have the opportunity to interview the center fields of Sentra.world. Let me start with Mr. Harsh Chaudhary. He's a prominent entrepreneur known for his role as the co-founder and CEO of Sentra.world, a cutting-edge technology platform that is revolutionizing the landscape of industrial manufacturing by advancing environmental, social, and governance practices. With a career spanning over 13 years at McKinsey and Company, Mr. Hirsch has accumulated a wealth of experience in management consulting, and his journey has taken him from a junior analyst to an associate partner. He has worked across diverse sectors and geographies, including Singapore and India, making him a seasoned professional in this field. Today, in his capacity as the CEO of Sentra.world, Mr. Harsh Chaudhary is at the forefront of driving innovative solutions aimed at decarbonizing industrial businesses. His visionary leadership and dedication to ESG principles are leaving a lasting impact on the global journey towards sustainability. Under his guidance, Sentra.world is playing a pivotal role in transforming the industrial manufacturing sector by fostering environmentally responsible practices and contributing to a more sustainable future. His career trajectory and commitment to SG issues make him a key figure in the ongoing global efforts to address environmental, social, and governance challenges in the industrial landscape. Welcome, Mr. Harsh Chaudhary.
Thank you. Thank you, Shivalika.
Mr. Vikas Chaudhary is a seasoned senior professional with a passion for advising businesses on their journey towards a sustainable and greener future. With a focus on transitioning away from fossil fuels, he champions the adoption of next generation renewables, particularly emphasizing the importance of green hydrogen, solar energy, and energy efficiency sections. With an impressive background, he has honed his expertise over a remarkable career that spans over 15 years. His journey of professional excellence began as a junior partner at McKinsey in Dubai, where he specialized in delivering tech enabled businesses transformations for industrial clients. During his tenure, he co led the McKinsey Digital Division for industrial clients in the Middle East, dedicating his efforts to revolutionizing business processes through the strategic application of digital technologies and analytics. Mr. Vikas' dedication to sustainability and his track record of delivering tangible results in the energy sector make him a visionary leader in the field of renewable energy and energy transitions. With his extensive experience and unwavering commitment to creating a more sustainable world, Mr. Vikas is at the forefront of shaping the future of energy and business transformation at Sentra.world. Welcome, Mr. Vikas.
Thank you, Shivali. Thank you for this.
Okay. So before we go ahead, I think it is something very, it happens very less, very rarely on Renewable India that we have two guests from the same organization, the two spearheads of Sentra.world. So welcome. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to interview you.
Thank you for having us, Shivalika.
Thank you. Okay. So let us go deeper into it, deeper understanding about what are the there are lots of significant greenhouse gas emissions when we talk about steel industry. So now, how could you highlight the specific environmental challenges associated with the steel industry and its carbon footprint? So this question is for both of you. So I will request Mr. Hirsch to answer this, please, first.
Thank you. Sure. So Shivalika, the steel industry is extremely pivotal to the global greenhouse gas emissions. Globally, it makes up around 8% of total emissions, global emissions. In India, that number is about 11 to 12%. Now, India's steel industry has a CO2 intensity, a carbon dioxide intensity of about 2.5 tons of CO2 per ton of steel. That's the unit of measure, compared to a global average of about 1.9 right? So we are easily 30% above the global average. This has its reasons. Some of the reasons include the heavy dependence on virgin steel rather than recycled scrap based steel. It's also due to the large amount of coal that we use compared to gas, which may happen in other parts of the world. And also there are inefficiencies in the system which we have to overcome. So overall, that's where the CO2 is one of the major challenges. There are other challenges around biodiversity given the dependence on coal mining. There are other issues related to broader societal issues, but I think the debate in today's business circles is very focused on the CO2 part, where India has some distance to go. But the good news is that there is enough intent in the private and the public sector to make that switch to get us to a point where we are globally competitive on our CO2 intensity.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Harsh. The thing is, I wanted to know from your perspective, Mr. Vikas, how do you look at these green emissions and greenhouse emissions, and how are they going to affect the future of the world, not just the India, but as such the whole world? How is it going to affect? And if we take up the sustainability issue in the steel industry, how is it going to impact the overall production of steel across the world?
Sure. So good questions, Valika. See, steel is a commodity which is kind of part of our daily use, and it steel has a unique property that it can be recycled, yeah, and more so infinitely with certain assumptions, of course. So to decarbonizing steel, not only in India but also globally, that paves the way for decarbonizing the whole world. And as Harsh just mentioned, around 8% of our global emissions are coming from globally coming from steel. So just decarbonizing steel, and more so if we leverage certain technologies like recycling steel, or or even going to more less hydrocarbon like coal and gas based, from moving away from coal and gas based production to more green hydrogen, and moving, and green hydrogen is one part. Similarly, there are other energy transition levers that you can actually leverage, and hence decarbonize steel. So there are multiple ways out there in the world which only not only India but globally industries are adopting. Some of the countries are advanced. India has a long way to go, but the intent is there from both companies, the private players, but also what we have seen from the ministry and the government. There is a big push for this entire energy transition, and more so for the steel industry.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Vikas. But I think this is more about the companies. They need to understand the importance of sustainability, greenhouse effect, and all these things. Because when we talk about manufacturing industry, a lot of carbon emissions, carbon footprints. We get this information from these manufacturing firms only, that we are working towards carbon footprint. We are doing this type of. We are taking this type of step towards renewability. This is what the government is helping us. So do you think that it is on the individual manufacturing firms that they need to take these steps, or is it really about the environment that the people are thinking about?
Is it for me?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. So it's actually a combination of all of the above.
Yes.
So yes, as first of all, as a consumer, we need to be more aware that we start using greener sourced materials, like any, for example, steel or aluminum. If you are using any commodity, it's as a consumer, we need to know that it's coming from greener source, and there are now ways to trace that, so that exactly you know whether it was produced from a green material versus not so green versus less green. So there are ways where you can actually trace, and you can make a choice that I want a green sourced material. I will be consuming only those. Yeah, that's from the consumer, and that's where the journey starts. Then it goes to the regulators or the government. They are responsible to make favorable regulation and bring in those regulation so that this energy transition can happen. And many countries, especially the Scandinavian, have shown us the way that if they push hard on the regulatory, like Norway and Sweden, and even to a certain extent Netherlands, they have shown us the way that energy transition can actually happen at an accelerated pace. That's where regulators have a role to play. And then finally, companies, at the end of the day, the companies are the producers, so they have to take the cue both from customers as well as from the regulators, and then decarbonize themselves, yeah, and move away from fossil fuel to more greener alternatives.
Okay, okay. So it is basically a combined effort. We understand that. Okay, thank you, Mr. Vikas. Mr. Hirsch. Now we have always heard that carbon credits they play a very very important role in supporting this decarbonization efforts. So how can carbon credits be effectively used in the context of steel industry, and if they are used, then what are the benefits for the same?
Sure. Yeah. So carbon credits are a buzzword, and they're coming into being
True.
in today's world. Um, we are at a stage globally where carbon credits are being relooked at and redefined. Uh, there are a few considerations which are being taken into play. The first one is the legitimacy of carbon credits. There have been a lot of questions on, carbon credits, if they're generated from forestry or other nature-based
True.
solutions, whether they actually exist. So there's a lot of focus now which is coming from international and domestic organizations to improve transparency over there. Secondly, there is also a question around how much of carbon credits can you use to offset your own emissions. For example, if I'm a steel company with a 2 million ton production per year, with a steel intensity of 2 tons of CO2 per ton of steel, my 4 million tons of CO2 that I'm emitting per year, how much can I actually offset through carbon credits, through the purchase of carbon credits? Uh, there are sort of perspectives on this globally. I think it's become fairly clear that most governments will ensure that up somewhere in the range of 5 to 20% or so is what companies will be allowable to offset via carbon credits. The rest of the emissions reduction they will have to do on their own, which means change out
Okay.
technology, become more efficient, and all of that. Now, considering this, there is still room for the steel sector to absorb carbon credits, to be able to lower their overall carbon footprint. But this is not going to be the only thing that they do. They have to do other things as well. Uh, steel companies also have to be very, very conscious around the quality of carbon credits that they're buying. There are numerous methodologies out there. There are auditing bodies who ensure that carbon credits are legitimate, and if it's related to, for example, tree planting, those trees actually exist. If it is related to renewables, then that renewable energy is actually hitting the grid. It is up to steel companies also to have the ownership to actually do these investigations and make sure that these carbon credits are legitimate, so that things don't circle back to them. So the one or two pieces of advice that we would give to steel companies in this area is: number one, ensure you cannot do everything through carbon credits. You have to mitigate things yourself. Carbon credits can be a sort of an icing on the cake or to top it off. That's one. Second one is be very, very transparent, clear, and sure about the carbon credits that you're buying. Double, triple verify that they're actually legitimate.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Harsh, do you think these carbon credits they play an important role in creating a financial background also for the organizations, especially in the steel industry?
So, see, carbon credits, you can be a creator of carbon credits, a developer of carbon
Yes.
credits. Supposing you're
Mm.
doing some great things in your plant, you've installed renewable energy. Um, you can generate carbon credits to it,
Okay.
and the other purpose is the buyer of carbon credits, buyer and the
Okay.
user of carbon credits. Now, if you're a generator of carbon credits, and let's say that you set up a solar plant, Carbon credits works on the laws of additionality, which means that you can either claim the value of these carbon credits and sell this carbon credit to somebody else, or you can use it internally, which means that, let's say, total emissions for 4 million tons. Out of that, you install some renewables which are reducing this by zero point 0.5, for example. You could either say that my company's emissions are 3.5, or you can say my emissions are 4, and this 500 extra carbon credits, 500,000 extra credits, you're selling to somebody else. You can't do both, right? So that's something which people also need to understand, and steel companies need to understand. They have to figure out what is more valuable for them financially. Is it
Okay.
to claim that credit internally, which they can try to get monetized through their customers by saying that, hey, my product is so much greener, or you can sell that carbon credit in the open market. So it's a question which steel companies have to answer. Typically, this is a CFO level question or a business level question to figure out where do they get the maximum bang for the buck. And as the purchasers of carbon credits, also they need to be sure around how they're using it, right? I think Vikas and I strongly believe that uh, sustainability in the steel industry, decarbonization in the steel industry, does have and will have positive economic returns. While we need to do this for the planet and fulfill national obligations, but there is a very strong financial
Okay.
business case for all of this, right? So again, with
Okay.
carbon credits also, there are both sides to the coin. I think companies just need to be sure about how they're using it and how they're monetizing it.
Okay, that is quite interesting. I never knew that so much of information is involved in behind carbon credits. Thank you so much, Mr. Harsh, for that. Okay, now my question is, anyone can answer this because it is related to the European Union. They has recently introduced the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So, how does this policy impact the steel industry, and especially in India, and what implications does it have for companies operating within the sector?
Yeah. So the steel industry is essentially is one of the six industries which comes under the carbon border adjustment mechanism. And the other, it's basically steel, cement, aluminum, fertilizers, electricity, and hydrogen. Now, by the CBAM regulation, uh, what EU is aiming for is to ensure that only low carbon footprint products are entering the region.
Okay.
Now, India exports a significant amount of steel and aluminum, primarily steel, to the European Union, and this makes up somewhere between 15 to 40% of India's exports,
Oh, wow.
about making a few $1 billion worth of exports. Now, as I said, when into India's emissions of steel, which is 2.5 tons of CO2 per ton of steel, is very high compared to the global average and much, much higher than the European standard. Uh, India will have to do some catching up over here because, as per this regulation, for the next year or next 1 to 2 years, we only need to report how much of CO2 is contained in the steel which is going from here to Europe. But 2026 onwards, you'll have to pay a penalty or pay a tax on that if your emissions are high. So this is a little bit of an inflection moment on how Indian steel industry manages the CBAM. Um, I think the two things which we see steel companies already starting to do is, number one is that get all of their reporting in order, right? And Vikas will tell us more about this, but get all of our reporting in order to ensure that we are doing very detailed level carbon footprinting of all the products which are being produced and hence exported, because that's what the regulation requires. And the other one is, over the next couple of years, we really do need to clean up the Indian steel industry in terms of CO2, for many inherent challenges which I had named earlier, like the reliance on coal, lower availability of scrap, enough funding for renewable energy, inefficiencies. But these are things which we will have to sort out faster and quicker. But I think I'm always amazed by the Indian entrepreneurial mindset, and I'm very sure that our steel industry is going to come out of this
Of
and
course.
lower their emissions and do this in the right way, to be able to be globally competitive. So I see this as an opportunity for India to take the next leg to become the primary exporter, the primary exporter of steel to EU, and really gain value from there.
Okay, okay. So, Mr. Vikas, Mr. Harsh was just talking about the reporting part. So, how can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, sure. So, to understand reporting, you need to also understand from CBAM perspective what they are trying to do here. They're trying to create a level playing field for European producers and non-European producers of steel. So what has happened in the past is since 2015, Europe has been focusing on their own producers, and they are collecting massive amount of data around how much emission is happening at every steel installation in Europe. Basically, they are extending that to non-European countries now, and that's where CBAM, the whole theory of carbon border adjustment mechanism, comes in. So their objective is to now collect data on emissions from all the installation or steel producers, similarly for aluminum and all, that is coming that are produced outside Europe and come and being exported to EU. So anything that touches EU shore, they need to report. Now to ensure that we can follow kind of three R's, yeah, methodology. Number one is recognizable methodologies. So to ensure reporting not only for CBAM but also there are other reporting methodologies like for steel specific. If I take, there is a World Steel Association methodology, there is a responsible steel. All of these have certain nuances, so we need to consider that. The second R is around having a reliable data. So digitizing the data collection with auditable trail. What does this mean is, if you try to do this manually, there will be mistakes. It's bound to happen. It's human error will happen, and that might lead into bad wrong number reporting as well as bad publicity and entire story around whether the numbers are correct or not. Right. That's why you have to do this digitally as well as maintain an audit trail so that the verifying agencies, and there are many in the world, and CBAM has also nominated 15 of them, like literally 15 few days ago. So they can come and audit. So companies like a Sentra can help the companies calculate the emissions digitally, so that there's an auditable trail, and these audit companies that are nominated by by CBAM and other agencies, they can come and audit. Yeah, we don't do the audit for obvious reasons, because if you are collecting data, you cannot do audit as well. And third one is the which comes with it is robust calculation. Now to do this, you need to enable your customer. You need to think from the customer requirement perspective. For CBAM, there is a different reporting. Similarly, for India, there is different. So this calculation has to be done in such a way that with a simple click or minimal effort, you can actually allocate your emission to different types of customer, be it automotive in India, or construction in Europe, or construction in Middle East. So based on that, you can do all these allocation. To do that, you need to have again three things in mind. One is frequency, so that you are doing this calculation at granular level, because that's what people are asking. In heat terms, we call heat level. Steel, we call heat level, so that's the granular level. Similarly, you have to understand which assets to include, which not to include, again mandated by different methodologies. As well as you cover the entire value chain, because the whole objective is not only the steel manufacturing side, but all the consume producer as well as the consumer of steel. The entire value chain has to be decarbonized. Then only the entire industry will be decarbonized.
Okay. Okay, actually, when I was reading about CBAM, I thought that they are being very, very harsh, and they are being very self-directed towards, only about thinking about their own industry as such. But now I understand, the way that you have explained us, that it is actually required and it is necessary at this point of view when the whole world is working towards renewability, and it is one of the most hottest topic and required steps that the companies need to take. So thank you so much, Mr. Vikas, on that. Now we have understood. We have done a lot of conversation related to the steel industry. Let us come down to Sentra.world now. So now I want to know, Mr. Harsh. So what role does Sentra.world play in advancing ESG practices within the industrial manufacturing sector? And what specific solutions or services does your platform provide to address these challenges?
Sure. Thanks, Shivalika. Let me answer the first half of that, and then we'll have
Yes,
Vikas answer the second
sure,
part around our services.
sure.
Industrial manufacturing makes up more than 50% of global greenhouse gas emissions. And that's precisely the reason why Vikas and I and the rest of the people at Sentra.world are actually focused on this. Now, In other words, these are also sometimes termed as the hard to abate sectors, which means these are the sectors where it is difficult to reduce CO2 emissions.
Correct. Yes.
And and there's something about tough challenges which gets Vikas and I going. So that's the reason why we took this up. We felt that the entire climate debate is incomplete without a very, very strong focus on industrial manufacturing. Uh, Now, for us at Sentra.world, we our aim is to be that one-stop shop where any industrial manufacturing player can come to us, come to our platform, and do everything in ESG, sustainability, and decarbonization. Cover right from being able to assess your own emissions to being able to monetize them, and more of that, right? Because perhaps you could talk a little bit about sort of our product capabilities and things.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Harsh. So, if you think about Centra, we are kind of a one-stop shop for industrial manufacturing companies to decarbonize and become more sustainable. And with that in mind, basically, we have developed multiple products, yeah, to tackle some specific problems for decarbonizing the entire value chain. Our key first and the main product is Centra.calculus, which is the brain where all the detailed calculation that I was talking in the previous point, that you have to digitally calculate entire emission. So that's what happens inside the calculus. We connect with the data systems, we make the data stream automatic flowing to our platform, and we calculate emissions depending on different methodologies, be it CBAM, be it responsible steel, World Steel Association, and so on. So we do all kind of calculations in an automated way. This is what we call calculus, where the brain is. And on top of that, we have other products to tackle different parts of the problem that the industry is facing. The second most important is network, which means we connect the entire value chain into our platform. So a steel that an end consumer like an automotive company is consuming, it's passing through 10 to 15 different steps of carbon addition, starting from the mines where it was produced to shipping to trucks on the trucks, and then making pellets, making DRI, and then steel. Finally, it goes for fabrication and the end consumer. So we connect the entire value chain, we bring them on board and help uh, calculate emission at every point so that the entire value chain can be decarbonized. So we bring that transparency through network. On top of that, this to tackle the problem that like whether this data, how authentic is this data? We have two different products. One is decarbonizing data, and the other one is
I think. Um,
Vikas
am I
is
audible? Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you're
think there is
audible.
some. Yes, yes. I think there is some issue with Mr. Vikas' internet connection. I think there. So, Mr. Harsh, can you continue on the same lines?
Sure, sure. So as Vikas was saying, right, the calculus is the main engine which is used to measure CO2 emissions in a very sector specific way. We have Centra Network, which helps which helps companies connect with their suppliers and bring all those folks into the entire decarbonization journey, because a lot of your emissions are sitting in your supply chain. There is Centra.trace, where we're using blockchain in partnership with Google get even greater transparency on CO2 emission, because there's a little bit of trust deficit as far as CO2 emissions reporting goes. So using blockchain traceability along long manufacturing value chains, you can ensure trust that somebody is not going to erase the or modify the emissions of their upstream, right? It solves for that problem. Then there's Centra.certify, where we are partnering with auditing and certification agencies, where
Yes. Okay.
where what we do is, for let's say steel manufacturing, we ensure that each product is getting a CO2 certificate um, um, per production batch. So per customer order, there is a CO2 certificate which goes along with that, and makes this like you're giving price, you're giving quality, you're giving delivery time, etc. This is just one more metric so that purchasers can have informed decisions. Centra.predict, where through analytics and a global e-marketplace, companies
Okay.
reduce their emissions. We also do stuff on financing and carbon credits, which we are in the process of developing. So the whole host of solutions for any company, any industrial manufacturing company looking to reduce their emissions, we are that one-stop technology shop, with the
Very
right
nice.
technology and the right people to solve it.
Oh, very thank you so much, Mr. Harsh. I think, I remember when I was a kid, I went to a steel plant. I think it was Bilai Steel Plant. And, there were so many things. I still remember a bit of things, how the steel was getting, it was going into a furnace. It was coming out with like a lava hot.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, and now when I'm listening to your your information, the types of things that are going on in the industry, it is revolutionized so much. And thanks to the sustainability goals by UN, sustainability policies that the countries are now they are adopting right now, things have evolved so much. And thanks to entrepreneurs and visionaries like you and Mr. Vikas, who are taking up such good measures, so that we can have a good, brighter, greener future and a green economy. So thank you so much, Mr. Harsh. Such a wonderful interview. Learned so much from you, and I never wanted this interview to end. But yes, I know you and Mr. Vikas both are short on time, and we would love to continue on the same lines. Maybe next time if you give us the opportunity. Thank you
Absolutely.
so
Thank you
much.
so much, Shivalika. Really, thank you for the kind words. And we need the support and love of everybody in the ecosystem, including you,
Thank
to
you.
edge us on and to help decarbonize the world, starting with industrial manufacturing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so